How's it going? This is Keanu Yamamoto with the Coachers Podcast, sitting here with Coach Jon Eagle, former head coach at West Linn High School in Oregon. Coach Eagle won 2 state titles for the Lions and amassed a record of 45-4. He also won 2 state titles during his tenure at Camas High School in Vancouver, Washington. Coach, thanks so much for jumping on. Please tell us about your family, journey, background, progression, all that good stuff.
Keanu, thanks for having me. Yeah, I just retired. Last night was my last banquet. Family, I've been married this summer for 40 years. I've got 3 daughters and a son, all grown up and college grads. I've got two of the daughters are in Colorado and one in San Diego, and my son lives in Spokane. So, yeah, very proud.
How many grandkids?
2 and 1 on the way.
That's exciting.
Yeah,
That's
very exciting. We're the traveling grandparents, so.
No doubt. We get to go to San Diego, get to go to Colorado, get to go to Spokane.
That's right. It's not all bad.
Yeah. Walk us through a little bit of your coaching journey, where you started, playing career, where you started coaching, and obviously where you ended up finishing.
Yeah. I finished and graduated at Linfield. Got a high school job after that. Was an assistant in Bend, Oregon for 2 years. And then I was fortunate to get a GA appointment at the University of Oregon in the mid-'80s. I did that. I went back to high school and became a head coach in Southern Washington. Did that for a number of years. And then, at Evergreen High School and Camas High School, did a 1-year stint at Portland State just after COVID. And then that didn't work out. And then took over at West Linn and then did that for 4 years. So that's about 45 years.
If we weren't coaching, what would have been the career choice?
Boy, that's a great question. I felt like I had a calling to be a teacher and a coach from a very young age. My father was a coach, and I knew very early that that's what I wanted to do. So I felt like it was a calling, like I'm meant to be here, and I'm supposed to be here, and my job is to encourage young people, and any way I can help them achieve what they want, that's what I'm supposed to do. So I never had any question. I'd figure I'd probably be selling cars or something like that.
Gotcha. At what age did you kind of come to that realization, like, this is what I wanted to do? Was that pretty early on?
Yeah, very well. Like I said, my father was a coach, and so I was around it all the time. He was a Hall of Fame track coach in the state of Washington, so I was around it all the time. I did have a coach who told me when I threw 3 interceptions in the first half. I was starting quarterback as a sophomore, and this coach said, "You'll never play quarterback here again." That's why I said I did, but I said, I'm never going to treat people like that. And I think, and we've become very closer, but I think that was a momentum for me, pushed me into wanting to be a coach and not treat people like that.
Yeah. Can you kind of dive into, your coaching philosophy and, what's important to you?
Well, I think, first of all, you got to make it fun. I think, we got to make it fun, but also I'm a big believer in using football as a vehicle to build better men. And it just has several opportunities to teach life skills, how to treat people right, how to be part of a team, how to be selfless, how to work hard for a common goal. All those things I think are taught. And that's really what we really focus on the process, worry about the process, about how, give kids structure and a goal. Some parts in there, students want to have some individual goals to strive for. That's part of it. So we want to work with them on that too.
Yeah. You talked about making it fun. So how do we balance, wanting to have fun, but still towing that line of, competitive excellence and, striving to get better?
I think fun is providing. Kids want structure. They hey, we have a schedule. We have the whole year planned out. So everybody knows we call them different phases: off season phase 1, spring ball phase 2, summer phase 3, fall camp 4. The season is 5, and then the playoffs would be 6. So we're always talking about, here's the goal of this phase, each phase along the way. And I think that structure, it's not fun to not know what's coming next. And we organize our practice the same way. So I think that's part of, and I think I tell our coaches, if you need to scream and yell to get your point across, then you're doing the wrong thing. And I know we talked about, you heard the story about the guy who lived next to the railroad tracks. Pretty soon he never heard the train. Well, that's the same thing as coaching. If all you do is yell, and then they're not going to hear you anymore. So I said, you got to pick one thing that you get mad about. You might hear the running backs coach, I don't want to see that ball on the ground. And they know it's coming. Or I'm a safety and somebody gets behind me, it's coming. So pick one thing. You can't pick everything. And so, we laugh every day. We pretty lighthearted about things, and we don't get too, we talk about football is this much of your life, this much of your life, your whole life is this, and it's just a small part of your life, and don't make it everything. Football is what you do, not who you are.
I like that, Coach. How would you say your leadership style kind of evolved over the years?
I am a collective leadership. I take all input. I think I'm a good listener. We collaborate. I enjoy very much empowering coaches and asking them what they think. At the typical meeting on Sunday, we have a part of our meeting is called blind spots. What am I missing that you think I should know? And so this is an opportunity for anybody on the staff to say, hey, Johnson only carried the ball 3 times. How come Johnson doesn't have more picks? Or why isn't Smith playing 2 ways? Why did we call on 4th and 3? Why did we call that play? So this gives everybody an opportunity to voice their concerns. What we don't want on a staff is parking lot conversations. Parking lot conversation is 2 guys that are mad about something that didn't bring it up or didn't have an opportunity to bring it up in a meeting, and they're talking about it after the meeting in the parking lot. So I think we do a good job. I try to do a good job of being a leader and say, hey, I start with me. Am I missing something? What are we not doing that you guys think we should do? And I learned that when I was a really very young head coach. All these guys brought up all these things at the end of the year meeting. I thought, well, why didn't you say these things during the season? And that's on me. That's on me. So we started this blind spots thing that what am I missing? So it really gives everybody an opportunity. And a lot of times in our meetings, I'll say, hey, here's my concern. What are your concerns about moving forward? We always talk about, it's really easy to improve when you lost a game. We say winning masks problems, losing exposes problems. So the best teams improve after they win. Everybody improves after you lose. I collaborate with all of our coaches and I listen to all of them. Everybody has a voice and a seat at the table. And we've got a pretty sizable staff of pretty knowledgeable guys.
Yeah.
That's where we start.
Can you kind of, reflect and, probably pinpoint an example of, a blind spot that a coach introduced or maybe a player introduced during the season, and then you went ahead and tweaked it right there?
Yeah, 100%. So my first year at West Linn in the 22, we lost a game early in the season to Sheldon. And Sheldon had a kid by the name of Tuioti who starts for the Ducks right now. I'm talking about.
He's a dog. Yeah, he's a dog.
And our quarterback was Sam Levitt. Sam Levitt's
also a dog.
Yeah. Yeah. So we couldn't protect Sam because we couldn't block this guy. What do we need to do to protect Sam? So fast forward to the state championship game. Who are we playing? Sheldon and Tuioti again. So what did we do? Our offensive line coach, we're just going to push the protection to him. Wherever he lines up, that player had help every play when we threw it. And we end up being fortunate and coming out on top in that game. But had we not lost that game early in the season, I think we would not have changed what we did. So that's an example of listening right after the game. What did we do wrong? What can we fix? And so we said we might see these guys again, and sure enough, we did.
Yeah, no, I really like how you do that. But how do you go about, encouraging coaches to open up and be critical in the right manner without, not wanting to step on your toes? You know what I mean?
Here's another example that we did. When I was at Camas High School, I tracked this is that who were the starters as freshmen at what position. And I noticed that none of the kids that started outside linebacker as freshmen ever, over an 8-year span, not one of them ever started at outside linebacker at high school at the varsity level. So I said to our outside linebacker coach, I said, and the freshman coach is in the room, I says, you 2 guys need to talk. And outside linebacker coach, you got to tell the freshman coach what you're looking for in an outside linebacker because you're not seeing the same thing. So the goal is to get kids in their position as soon as possible. And if we have a senior starter, we would try to avoid as best we can not having a senior behind him. In a perfect world, we have all seniors starting and then they're backed up by juniors. So we have experience and we just roll right into the next year. So that's just one example, but I think one thing the head coach needs to do a lot of is what is our identity? At West Linn, we said we're going to play fast. And if you're going to be in this room and on this staff, we're going to play fast. We're not going to huddle. And if you think if you're all about time of possession, then you're not coaching at the right team. And we're going to pressure. We're going to play man coverage on defense. We're going to pressure you. We're going to come after you. We're going to see if you can play football fast and you can deal with the pressure. And most high school quarterbacks can't. Then what's your game plan to counter that? So that's who we are. And if you like to play zone and not blitz, this might not be the place for you. I said, that's who we are. If you're going to be on the staff. So my job is to let everybody know what our identity is and who we are. And I think a lot of coaches don't do that. There's a lot of ways to win football games, but this is how we're going to do it. And I think a lot of that, every job is different. At some schools, you might be a wing T team. If you're going to be a wing team, you better be super physical up front. You better have a really great weight training program. And you got to be, in this day and age, you got to be big and physical if you're going to be that kind of team. But, anyway, that's just my 2 cents on that.
Yeah. Kind of diving into your scheme philosophy, was that Jon Eagle 30 years ago? Was that the same type of mentality? Or were there some tweaks along the way as far as who you wanted to be as a coach and what you wanted your program to look like?
For a long time, I was a I formation guy. All the typical I plays you see. And then, I started studying Rich Rodriguez, Mike Leach. I can remember the moment I saw things on TV or on film. And I said, that's going to be like the first time I saw Texas Tech beat Texas. Mike Leach is at Texas Tech. If you asked all those kids on the suited up for that game, if you could choose what school you'd go to, where would you go? They'd all say Texas. But here we are. That's the beautiful thing about coaching is Texas Tech wins that game. Michael Crabtree catches a pass on the sidelines and the whole student body crushes the field. And I said, I got to find out what that play is. And so that play is 4 verticals. So at that point, I want to find out everything I know about 4 verticals. And I said, I came to our staff and says, that's the identity of our passing games. We're going to start with 4 verticals and we're going to go from there. And then from then on, Rich Rodriguez and the RPO game. I can remember when Rich Rodriguez was at Arizona and he threw an RPO downfield. I said, that's RPO. I said, they're blocking inside zone. He threw that ball downfield. I said, everybody's throwing bubble and now screens and somebody threw an RPO downfield. I said, I got to find out what that is.
Yeah.
So we're big time RPO. So I tell our players, I said, you have to make a decision as a coach. Are you going to stop the passing game or are you going to defend option football? You can't defend option football playing man. And you talk to all these people, RPO people. I just listened to Nick Saban last week and said, you're going to stop RPO football. You better play man and man free. That's going to take it away. Well, you can't. Who's got the quarterback? If you're playing man, who's got the quarterback on option? So if you got a quarterback that can run, and as everybody knows, you're going to do some damage. So there's some issues there. And I'm sure whoever has the chalk glass is going to win. But that's how we go about it. So we're an inside-outside zone team, pin and pull. I got pin and pull from Coach Kavanaugh when he was at Oregon State.
He's a legend, man. I got to work with him for 3 months. For 3 months, I loved him.
I tell you what,
and he's he coached in Hawaii, so we kind of had that connection there too.
Okay. See now, so we used to take our team to summer camp at Oregon State, and I said, hey, I got to ask you about it. I don't know how we ended up at the dining hall or something like that, and I said, you got to tell me about that. I'd never heard. I think some people call it the horn play or something like that.
Yeah.
So pin and pull. So he taught me that and all the rules about it, and it's become a great play. It's a great play with outside zone. If one's not working, then the other one will. And so we run it both weak and strong. So all these moments, all these things, Chip Kelly comes along and plays fast and all the different things. And he does a Y cross concept. We call Y cross concept Kentucky. That's where Mike Leach was an assistant at Kentucky. You can tell the age of a coach. So a lot of young coaches call it Saints, because that's Drew Brees' favorite pass concept is Y cross. Anyway, I'm probably rambling on here, but
no, I appreciate it. I freaking love it, man. But you talking about that and going on, I'm just kind of how the scheme and your philosophy evolved. Maybe think of, I like asking this question to coaches that I worked with. Do you think the game of football, is it cyclical? Is there a finite amount of knowledge, or is it going to somehow elevate or something new some new invention of an offense might take place?
There's something always new. I saw on the Monday night, was it Kansas City on Monday Night Football, or was it they were on Sunday?
I'm trying to think.
I tell you what,
Texans, I think, and Texans Kansas City was Sunday.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that game, and I was just talking to our new young offensive coordinator. I said, I saw something that they did. They faked inside zone, and that back released in the flat.
And he dropped it. Kareem Hunt dropped it. Yeah.
I said, now let's talk about what was going on there. I said, you get cover one, and that D end has been told to tackle the back, and the back releases. What's he going to do? And if he chases, then the quarter, if you got a running quarterback, he can run. I said, it's just speed option upside down. Mm-hmm. But so to answer your question, I don't think if you would ask that question 25 years ago, people would say, yeah, we've come to the end of the improvement of football. I don't think people are so creative and what's going on right now. I don't see any end in sight to improvement and where we're going with all this.
Yeah, no, that was a good play, and then put it right on top Kareem Hunt's shoulder pad, and he ended up dropping. I think it was Kareem Hunt. I can't remember that.
And you said cyclical. We were in a playoff game, and I said, you know what? Nobody does anymore. Run trap. Yeah. Nobody runs trap anymore.
And if NFL, that's a big deal. Just influence trap. That's a big deal. But NFL, there's not as much. I think on base downs, it's not as exotic that you're going to see in I don't know about high school, but college. A lot of teams, and you get down to second down pass situations. Like sometimes they're treating it like third and long as far as depending on tendencies. But sorry to cut you off there with the trap, but.
I'm just saying that, you used to see trap all the time. People play a 4-3 defense. That's the first play you put in. Quarterback under center, you do a quick trap. And we ran that in the playoff game. We hadn't shown it all year. Kids got it like that.
Did it work? Did it work for you guys?
It did. That 3-tech never saw it coming.
Yeah, no doubt. Can you talk to me a little bit about, when you first get to a new program, when you get to Camas, when you got to West Linn, what does that transition look like? Can you kind of maybe just the evolutionary steps of what that transition looks like? What's your first prerogative, and then kind of go through that?
Well, the first thing I do is I meet with the players first as a class, seniors, juniors, sophomores, and then I try to meet with them individually. And the first thing I tell everybody, and I tell this to the coaches and everybody, says, let's define pushback. Pushback. I said, I'm going to ask you to do some things that you maybe have not done before. And pushback means, well, you might think, well, we haven't done this before. And I said, well, that's pushback. And I need you to have buy-in to what we're doing. You got to, at some point, you have to trust your coach. And I've got your best interest in mind. So that's the first thing we do. And then I do my best to, when I was much, much younger, and I did not have a family, my first job, I treated all the players as recruits. And I went into the homes of all the kids, and it was awesome. Because I had 100% buy-in. So some people they had aunts and uncles, and I was sitting down at dinner. I just wanted to sit and talk to you about the program. And I would ask the players, how do you see yourself playing football?
You were just trying not to cook. You were just trying not to cook too.
Well, you got me on that one. But I did that. Obviously I can't do that with the family anymore. But the point is, I will sit down with as many kids as I can and ask them, how do you see yourself? I want them to tell me, well, this is my dream position. This is what I want to do. I said, well, what's your second choice, and so on, and get to know them. What's your favorite number, and what's your favorite class? Tell me about your family. Do you have any issues? I tell our coaches this, the best good coaches see what happens on the field. The best coaches see what happens on and off the field. You got to know. We just had a terrible thing. One of our lineman lost his father just last week, and it was just devastating. But I have to know that. I have to be there for him.
Yeah,
that's part of the job.
So after you get to know your players, you define pushback. What's the next step?
Say, well, let's talk about goals. Well, everybody said, yeah, we want to win the state championship. So, okay, great. How are we going to do that? Now, really, I don't know if you're going to ask me this question somewhere in there. I don't know if you've read the book Grit by Angela Duckworth.
No, I got it out in the garage though. That's one of the books, because I like to read a lot of books along those lines. Yeah. And I think that was one that I got kind of halfway through and I never finished it. So I didn't have enough grip to finish the Grit book.
I kind of wish I had read that before with all my kids, but I read it after. But I think what it does is she talks a lot about, instead of long-term goals, short-term goals, daily goals. And then you see all these people when people start saying, win the day. that comes from grit is, be your best self today. What do you, like at Linfield, you have that sign that says, am I a better football player today than I was yesterday? That what it says? And so it's the same mentality is what can I do today rather than, I talk to my kids all the time about, I love to hike. And if I see that peak off in the distance, if I'm looking at that peak while I'm hiking, I'm going to trip. I'm going to trip on a rock. I'm going to trip on a root. So I got to keep my eyes on the ground right in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And if I keep taking correct steps, eventually I'm going to get to that peak, but I can't be looking at that peak right now. So we talk about that metaphor, and there was a time when we actually, after reading that book, we took our team on a team building hike. So we'll do some kind of team building things and have a different, like this shirt I'm wearing here has a motto on the back. That's our motto, like a 3-letter acronym that stands for something. And so we'll have along the way, we'll refer back to that, climb the mountain, CTM, that type of stuff.
Yeah. Is that something that you guys kind of redo or redefine every year?
Yeah.
With the new leadership council? Can you kind of dive into that, kind of how you go about structuring, shared leadership within the team?
Yeah. There's two kind of coaches. Some guys coach 30 years and they do the same thing 30 years in a row. And some guys coach 30 years and they do something different every single year. And I think I'm the latter. I think, hey, how can we do this better? So we have an acronym called We Set the Standard. We set the standard. That means we want to find out what is the best way, who builds team better than anybody else. And we want to see, will we copy somebody? Yeah, if we think it's better than what we're doing, we will. So that's what we do is we'll sit down. We had a senior retreat last summer, and we had the kids write down goals for each other, expectations for each other. And the best teams have players that hold each other accountable. Good teams have coaches hold players accountable, but the best teams have kids hold each other accountable. So I think you start there. I think you build better men, and that's part of the process. And then winning will take care, or your success will take care of itself after that.
Yeah.
Did I answer that question?
Yes, you did, Coach. I appreciate that. Who have been some of your greatest influences?
Well, I think right off the bat, for me, my parents, just being around them and how, I'm not going to bore you with the story, but my father,
No, please. I want to hear.
some people are outraged by this story, but he was I really can't, I said, they can't tell this story unless all the people involved are dead. So this is a true story. My father was one of 3 guys that brought the javelin as an event in the state of Washington. This is way back in the early 70s. And some school districts said, we can't throw the javelin in the Seattle schools. So some schools said, yeah, we'll do it. Some schools said, no, we can't do it. So in order to prevent, let's say one school could win a state championship in state track if they had 8 guys that could throw the javelin. So they made these ridiculous standards. And this is the outrageous part. And most people don't know this, but they took the tape measure. My dad wanted all these kids to go to state, and all the guys involved are all complicit in this crime. And what they did is they took the tape measure and they cut 20 feet out of the middle of it and glued it together. So the guy threw the javelin 170 feet,
Yeah.
but it measured out to be 190. Now, some people are outraged by this story. So here's the best part of the story is, so they qualified, and my dad was coached at a school where not a lot of kids could drive to Seattle. I mean, you're pretty much stuck. You're not going on vacation to Disneyland. It's a pretty rough school today. So these kids all qualified. 8 kids qualified to go to state track meet in Seattle at the University of Washington. 7 of the 8, they did not bring that tape with them. 7 of the 8 improved their throw at the state meet. To this day, the district champion in Southwest Washington, the district record in the javelin is 224 feet. That kid went to the state track meet because he believed he could throw 224. He threw 228 and won the state track meet in the state of Washington. And nobody knows that. But
that's a great story.
So my dad, the epiphany for my father was like, am I lying to kids? What good does it do to tell a lineman, hey, you run a 6.5 40? No, dude, you're 5'1". But anyway, so he became a guy that, you know what, we'll get you there, but we're going to fudge things a little bit. So if you believe, you can do it.
Yeah. No, I think there's a great underlying message in that, though. I've had other coaches come on, and I spoke with Coach Kevin Keeney, um, and he speaks highly of you. But that's one of the things he talked about is like, a lot of times he's loving these players up or loving these wrestlers up, and he's saying, "Hey, you're the greatest in state. You're the greatest in state." When both him and the player knew at that moment in time, you know, not right now, but it was almost like the power of not yet. You know what I mean? And then eventually that self belief started to take root, and it came to fruition. So I do think
That's our job is that players need to have somebody who believes in them. That's all they need. That's all they want.
yeah. No, it's a good story, Coach. Aside from mom and dad, any coaches that made a great impact on you?
Ad Brushman at Linfield,
Yeah.
really the master of attention to detail. I
Did
learned
you
that
cross
from him.
paths with Tony Smith? I don't know if he went and coached
I
there
did not.
after.
I did
Okay.
not. I know the name. I know of
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
Mike Riley was there when I was there.
Yep.
So, the Linfield guys have a reputation of, sitting in the front row at clinics and being really great note takers and studiers of the game. Chris
Yep.
Casey was there when I was there.
Bunch of
And Jay
legends.
Losey.
And I kind of want to hear it from you because it was cool, when Coach Tony Smith was talking about how he went to Linfield and was coaching at Linfield and was taking classes at Linfield. And, he was looking for whatever the secret sauce was. What made Coach Ad Rutschman so great? Is there anything that, that stands out to you?
Well, yeah, to me, I went back, if you haven't bought his book, you need to. So I went back and all these things that I had said to kids over all these years, I go, I'd forgotten where I got it, and they're all in that book.
Yeah.
And, what I got from him is really, a lot of the rote memory things, the kicking game rules.
Yeah.
The kicking game rules.
Did that stem from Coach?
Yeah.
Don't be offsides.
Yeah.
Don't ref the quicker. Don't block below the waist.
All that. Catch the ball.
Yeah.
The average ball, if it hits the ground, will roll 17 yards on a punt. Catch the ball. How many timeouts? How do we sub?
Yeah.
So I use some of that. I think, but what was fun for me, I got to be back in the day, Rushman sat in the box and called plays from the press box. So you got to listen to him, try to figure out what plays next and why. And so that was really valuable for me is to what he looked at and what he saw.
Yeah.
Oh, I think play calling, I think it really is an art, and I think he's a master at it. Some guys really have a feel for it, and I everybody tries to be good at it, but there's a science of it and there's an art of it, and I think I learned that from him.
Yeah.
I got a lot from Rich Brooks when I was at Oregon. Denny Schuler was a defensive coordinator. I moved to the defensive side of the ball. Denny Schuler was a D coordinator. And really a lot of things, play man within your zone, cancel threats, force and flat. Every defensive position has, run to me, run away, pass to me, pass away, all that detail. And I think once you learn on one side of the ball, it helps the other side of the ball. So that's one of the best things I did was to coach defense at Oregon.
Yeah. Did you always want to go back and be a high school coach, or did you want to do the college coaching when you're a young coach?
I had a dream to do, after the GA job, there was a couple opportunities, D3 opportunities, and there was a job at Montana that I didn't get. So I just said, well, I got married, so I need a job. So I ended up high school and I loved it. I think it was a good fit for me. I did go back after I was at Camas. In between Camas and West Linn, I coached at Portland State for 1 year, and I did that and left on my own terms. It just wasn't for me. I was meant to be a high school guy.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because there was like two vivid occasions that I remember sitting down and talking with Coach Rutschman. And this was when I think it was my first or second year at Linfield, and I was hungry and I just wanted to climb the ladder, and I wanted to be a Division I coach, and I wanted to be a position coach, and I wanted to make X amount of money. And Coach Rutschman, I was sitting next to Coach Rutschman at a basketball game, and he's like, you can be a millionaire as a high school coach. And here is this guy that I just revered, and a lot of people revered and looked up to. And I'm like, oh, don't tell me that. That's not what I want to hear. I want to hear like, yeah, go for it, pursue your dreams. No, but he said, you can be a millionaire coaching high school ball. And, for whatever reason, he could kind of foresee I guess, my future more than I could, because, I stepped away from college coaching in spring ball, and now I'm a stay-at-home dad and just living my best life. And I'm like reflecting on these conversations that I had with him, where I'm just like, a little frustrated from the conversation, but I'm just like, maybe he was freaking right, and he knew it all along.
He had many opportunities to coach college. Rich Brooks tried to get him to come to Oregon at Portland State, tried to get him as a head coach, and he's coaching college. But he said something to me too. Are you happy? He said, "Are you happy doing what you're doing?" And he says, "I'm not sure you can be happier." And the thing about, you've got little ones there, and here I am sitting here in my one of my daughter's old bedrooms. That's now my den, and all my kids are grown and gone. What I would not give to go back to be where you are right now.
Yeah.
And what the beauty of the high school, what it gives you is to be in your children's lives, and you can't go back. And I know I talked to some college coaches that they say you're doing it right. Like I talked to a guy, he was recruiting one of our tight ends, and he drove up from Eugene to watch our tight end, and we're sitting there together watching.
Was that Barron?
No, this is probably 25 years ago.
Okay.
I'm not going to tell you the coach's name, but coach tight ends at Oregon, and we're sitting there watching a basketball game in the gym, and he says, "You know what? I just left to come up here and watch your kid play basketball. I left my 5-year-old son running down the street with my wife with a baby in her arms, chasing my son as I left in the car, and my son didn't want me to leave." And now that kid that was running down the street, I think he's an assistant coach at Stanford right now. I'll tell you that much. You'll probably figure out who it is.
Yeah. No, that's pretty cool. That's a
But
good
yeah, don't ever regret. You find the right fit, and the high school job can be awesome.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, Coach, for sharing that. All right, let's put on our offensive caps for this one. Little hypothetical. The one formation challenge. You can only go into a game. You can only run one formation. What's the formation and why?
I like what the Y off gives you, 2x2 formation with the Y off.
Yeah.
Our best receiver to the field as a slot. I like the decisions that you have to make. We can't do pin and pull as well with Y off, or at least we haven't done it. But we've got outside zone to strength, got our RPO to the other way. We got our slice. We do a lot of bring the receiver across the formation as an RPO behind the line of scrimmage versus man. It gives a lot of 2x2 concepts. We can do everything from that. We can go pistol, offset. And so I would say that formation I like the best.
Okay. I like that. Is there a drill or team period that you guys do that you wish you did sooner on in your career?
We did, and I get asked a lot about this. We call it FTF, first things first, and we start right after warm-up.
I just spoke with Coach Pine yesterday, and he said the same thing. That was one of the things, first things first. Yeah. Well, he said he did a competition period after first things first, and we were talking about the competition period. But I asked him, when is that competition, block within your practice? And he said, we do it right after FTF.
Yeah. So I got it from Chris Casey when Chris was at Aloha High School. And so basically, did Pine already describe it for you?
We're more so focused on the competition block that he was talking about.
So we take 5 minutes, and we at the beginning of the season, we match all the players up. Like I want my 2 inside starting linebackers to partner up. We would never have a senior and a sophomore together. The DBs and receivers are all together, and then in the end zone, all the running backs and linebackers are together, and then the other side of the field, all the O and D linemen are together. Quarterbacks and kickers are in the middle of the field, getting warmed up. But we work on blocking and tackling, all the fits, shoulder fits, from close proximity, and then we add distance to it. And I would say over the years so how do I gauge? Like I look at yards after initial contact. Are we good tacklers? So that's how we evaluate that. So we'll evaluate, how do we block? I think our receivers block very, very well. And I point back to FTF, is teaching kids how to block. You put all these RPOs and you don't teach the receivers how to block. What good is it? And so I would say that FTF is a fundamental. And I think our coaches, if they get really good at it, they don't even need 5 minutes. And so I think tackle circuits are overrated.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. Think of all the reps that you can get in 5 minutes with two really good players. And a lot of our coaches after 3 minutes are going, hey, we're good. We're good.
Yeah. No, I like that. You mentioned yards after contact. And one thing that I, find interesting is, is there anything that you guys chart that you would probably consider like a non-traditional stat? Just for an example, when I was at Boise State, a big emphasis was, okay, if we could hit the QB 10 times, not sack him, if we could hit him 10 times, it's gonna change his thought process. It's gonna change his comfortability, his comfort in the pocket. Is there anything that you guys do? And I think I like that one, yards after contact from a defense perspective. Is there anything else that you guys chart or track
well, as a head coach, I'll do the yards after contact, but I also do the tackling. How many solo tackle opportunities do we have in a game? And, what's our batting percentage on tackling? We want to have that. We try to, one thing we do is how many not sets do we get? Not set means we're playing fast. The defense not set. Are they not set? And so that, it was an unintended benefit of playing fast. And so, or I'm not kidding you. How many times can we make the defensive guy throw up? I'm not kidding you. So we would tell our offensive lineman, I say, look, if you look back and you see way back, I said, look, if you see two safeties standing back there, they're saying to you that you can't run the ball. Well, going into this game, I knew it was a two high safety team. So they're hitting each other. They got two safeties back there. We're going to run the ball. And so charting, we try to chart not sets. We chart.
What's your goal? What's your goal for a game?
I don't know. Is it effective? We don't really set a goal. We're just saying, how many can we get? But we do chart specifically boundary safety alignment.
Okay. I like that.
Boundary safety alignment. Does that, will he tell us what the defense is?
Pre-snap cues, man.
And so I think we tell our quarterback, if you see a lot, you see very little, meaning you try to see everything, you don't see anything. If you see little, you see a lot. And so that's the goal. And so I challenge the players to find something. We're always trying, and I think I got this from Ad Rushman, is you're trying to create coaches on the field. And so that they're contributing. And I tell them most technique comes from players. Coaches come in with a technique and go, well, this guy's doing it wrong. You got to do it this way. Well, wait a minute. The way he's doing, I'm this old as that receivers used to be in 3-point stances.
Yeah, that's bad.
Right. And you talk about, has football reached this end? No way, man. And so guys are standing up now. So somebody somewhere stood up and somebody said, you can't do that. And then I said, well, wait a minute, maybe that is better. And it changed everything.
Sorry, go ahead. What was your...
Same with the Fosbury flop. You know what the Fosbury flop is?
I have no idea what the Fosbury flop is.
You look up Fosbury flop, F-O-S-B-U. And as a matter of fact, this guy's an Oregon State grad. He changed the way the world high jumps. Most guys used to go over face down. This guy went backwards. You're not supposed to do it that way.
No, I like that. Going back to, we're talking about scheme and all that good stuff. You're seeing it a lot more in the NFL game. I would love your input on it, but you're already talking about, we called it a zip or a tear motion where it's a fast motion by the back, but they're already aligning the tailback now 1 or 2 yards outside the tackle box. What do you think they're trying to gain with that alignment?
I think they're trying to, but that's short. They're trying to see, can you tip the coverage on that movement?
Yeah. What about now they're starting to just align them, 1 or 2 yards outside the tackle box. What do you think the reason is behind that?
I think get him out faster. I think the matchup with the outside linebacker, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that at that level, it's all about matchups. I had a guy I coached with who told me, really the play calling in the NFL is all about money.
It's all about money?
It's all about money. It's how much are you making versus how much is that guy? Like, you got a receiver making 10 times as much as a corner. We're going to throw it to the guy that makes more. We're spending our money on the offensive line. We better be able to run the ball. That's where our investment is.
Yeah. One of the coaches that I worked with at Oregon State, good dude, Tommy Dude, was a coordinator at BYU for a little bit. Rugby background as well. And he's like, one of the ideas that he brought up, and I think they did a little bit back in the day, is like, why aren't laterals, like we do talk about ball security, job security, but why aren't laterals a big part of the game?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah,
that's a great question.
Like, how, and like people run hook and ladders all the time, throw a little hitch, and then you got the tackle coming out and they toss it back to the tackle. Like, why isn't it a greater part of the game?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, uh, it's a skill that hasn't been developed. Now look how much better kids throw the football today than they did, say, 30
Yeah.
years ago. It's not even close.
Yeah.
So this
And tackling too. That tackling's another thing too that's kind of evolved throughout the years.
Yeah. So your lateral thing could be, somebody somewhere is gonna say, "Hey, I'm gonna take that skill and we're gonna utilize that skill." Somebody, didn't Travis Kelce, I don't know whether it was planned or not, but caught a crossing route and threw a backwards pass across the field?
Yeah.
You
I think
remember
that
that?
was him. Yeah.
So, it's like they were onto something with that, maybe so, but,
Why is football the greatest sport in your opinion? I'm just assuming that's what you think it is. Why is football the greatest sport?
I think it has a combination of a lot of things. I think the team, I think the physical aspect of it. I think the game. I think the biggest and strongest athletes, I think, play it. It's kind of like most people prefer to watch the heavyweight fighters just because of the biggest and the strongest, not maybe necessarily the best. I just think the pageantry of it,
Hmm.
I think, is a part of it. I think, and people have added things, the before and after game part of it. I think, I've never been asked that question before, but I just think it's just the schematics of it. I think is, I'm mystified why soccer is so exciting to people. It's like people all over the world love it. I coached in Italy one year, and soccer was all about soccer over there.
I think to your point, so I did a study abroad my senior year at Linfield, and it was Economics Association of Football. And we went over to London and we spent a month out in London and we got to go to a bunch of live soccer games. And to your point, you talk about pageantry and you talk about fandom and you talk about essentially a religion out there. And so once you're kind of immersed in that culture, and it was fun too because all the arenas had their own gambling houses. So I wasn't a big fan. I played soccer growing up, liked it, didn't love it, played FIFA, but I could go place a prop bet. And now I'm locked in on what's happening on with the game. But I think to your other point is why it's so popular. I think from an accessibility standpoint, it's a cheap sport to play and it doesn't require a lot of, you can go kick the ball against the wall. You know what I mean? And so I think there's an accessibility aspect to that.
Yeah.
Jon Eagle just retired. Go back, give yourself advice. Just took over the head job at Evergreen High School. What would that advice be?
I think a lot of coaches, when they're asked that question, they say things like this: is that I placed too much emphasis on trying to win
Yeah.
and didn't do enough working with my players. And at my that is a conundrum. And my answer to that is, you can be the greatest team builder and work with kids, but if you continue to go 1-9, you're not going to have that job and you're not going to have that opportunity. So I think initially it's important that you do have success. And at the same time, you're working as a young coach to develop your players as people.
Yeah.
And I don't think it didn't matter to me when I was younger about, working with players. I had my when I was super young, I took my oldest daughter to me during the summer to get the equipment all ready. And she said, "When are we going to go? When are we going to go? When are we going to leave?" And I said, "Hey, look, I had a magazine and in it was a picture of the Seahawks team. And I cut it into a bunch of pieces. I said, "Hey, here's a puzzle. When you finish this puzzle, we'll go home." And so she finished it like in less than 2 minutes. And I said, "How did you do that so fast?" She said, "It was easy. On the other side of the picture was the picture of a person. So when you put the person together, you put the team together."
Well, that's good. I like that.
And I said, "What'd you say?" She said, "When you put the person together, you can put the team together." So there
That's
you go.
deep. That's deep. So you got some of the best insight from your daughter.
You know what? And if you quit talking so much and listen a little bit more, you'd learn a lot.
Yeah. I do want to just make a PowerPoint and put together a presentation revolved around, you know, things that you can pick up from your kids and how it can apply to coaching.
I
Because
think
there are so many things, exactly what you just said, but at some point it's like, we all have a little inner child in us.
yeah.
And you can learn so much from just observing how your kids go about their business. Like one of the most prominent things, it's like just selfish nature of kids.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with it, but it's like you got two toys and you got a million other toys around the house and one kid has that toy. The other kid just wants that toy, needs to have it. It's the most important thing in the world.
Yeah. I think that'd be great. I think that
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Once I'm gonna do it. I just got to do it. I just got to go ahead and do it.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going into a game week. Opponent scout process. What does that look like? How you delegating that to your coaches? When you're watching film, I guess when you were calling it, what are you looking for from a defensive structure standpoint? What's some of the first things you try and pick apart from that defense?
Well, I tell kids, I said, for trying to be a good coach is you're trying to be a good guesser as to what you think they're going to do. But you have to understand going into that when you put down and first of all, huddle is terrible at what do they call it? That huddle. I don't even use it.
I don't even know, but once you go in the college game and you got Exos or Catapult, like it's a cheat code compared to huddle.
Right. So you take that information. You got to have that information. So we'll input all that data, but you got to understand that they got it from other teams, and what they see in you, they may have a completely different approach to defending you. So I'm talking about from a play caller to what I'm looking at. So we're gonna find out. What do you like to do in different situations? Do you blitz on first down, or do you like to play base? And I'll go through and I'll check when did they play base, when did they jam. Well, they jam when you're having success on the outside with the quick game. So with an offense, if you're consistent with your offense, you begin to see the same scheme because people copy. Hey, they had success versus West Linn. Let's do this. So I go through all that breakdown. What do they do on third down? What are their blitzes? We do a blitz pickup drill so we can have everything covered. So our kids nobody's going to be surprised unless they do something different. If they do something different, particularly at the high school level, we say desperate teams take desperate measures. If they come out and do something drastically different, then they don't believe that they can beat you with their basic stuff. And so, we will always say, are they doing what we prepped you on for and Ad Rushman always said, every defense has a strength and a weakness.
Yeah.
I said, this is an 8-man front. This is primarily a run stop defense. They want to stop the run. If they got an 8-man box, if they got too high, 6-man box, 7-man box, here's how we control that. So that's how we go about it. And I don't think it's anything, we'll do a self-scout. I want to know what you know. I called up Huddle when they actually talked to you. I called them up and I said, is there any way we can know what teams have our film?
Yeah.
And he says, Coach, that is the most asked question we get. And the reason you want to know that is I don't care, who's trading our film and what's going on behind your back. All I want to know is what do you have so I can
break tendencies.
Yeah. What are our tendencies? So we kind of know then I'll break down my quarterbacks. Where is his completions? Where do most of his completions come from? And is it a particular player? Is it a particular area of the field? And so on and so forth. So we know what our strengths and weaknesses are. I use, I think that's the art, the science is collecting all that data. And then the art of is, okay, well, let's take that information and match it with what can our players do? What can they do? How are you dealing with, okay, on 58% of the time they're doing this. You're going to base a decision on 58%? Really? I mean, I'm going to throw the ball to our best player until you stop it.
I spoke with a basketball coach, gentleman at Whitman College, and one of the things, and I think it translates to the quarterback position like a lot. And I asked him, kind of what his philosophy was, and the coolest thing I thought he said was, I'm trying to build great decision makers. So, is there anything what does that look like? What does that communication look like? I know this could be a very broad question, but what's your process with dialing in or calibrating your QB?
That's a great question. I talked about that last night at the banquet. You got two kind of athletes. You got two straight A students. One is the kid in the front row, go me. I know. The other guy's in the back row doing this. He's thinking about it. Which one's the better quarterback? It's that fast processor. They're both A students, but your quarterback wants to be a fast processor. Sam Levitt is a fast processor. The kid we had this year, a first team All-State as a junior, fast processor. So what we do is we take, okay, what are we asking him to read? So we do, inside zone read. So we do it, you're going to have a coach standing there with a bag. You can have a 60-year-old coach with a bag. we'll go live read. I got two JV linemen that rotate, and I'll tell them, hey, take the back, take the quarterback. So we're going live read, and or we'll do. I'll break it down like, read the boundary safety or 4 verticals in the boundary. They have to read. Is he going to go deep? Is he going to sit it down? So we take a small thing, look at a small thing. So on this play, you're going to read this player, and that defender will tell you where you're going to throw. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I think what you have to help kids. You got to break it down and do the small things. We always say, if you can't do the little things right, you won't do the big things.
I think it goes back to your point, exactly what you said, man. Just see a little, see a lot.
Yeah.
See a little, see a lot.
And then we might find, on 4 verticals, if they can't read it, receiver can't read it, why are we throwing it?
Yeah. All right. Going to go to the Anela question of the day. So my daughter had a question for you. Her question was, what is your favorite Christmas movie?
I like, for a long time, I love National Lampoon Christmas Vacation. I love that one. Then when I had kids, it was probably Home Alone or Elf. So I'm going to say 3-way tie. I'm going to avoid your question.
My kids are, right now, that's a great question. Probably have to go by default with reps in the house. It would probably be the new cartoon, or not new, but the cartoon Grinch. My wife tried to put on the Jim Carrey Grinch the other night. Yeah, my daughter got a little scared. But right now it's,
She's not ready for it yet.
No, she's not ready for it. Jim Carrey spooked her. Jim Carrey spooked her. What does the word team mean to you, Coach?
The sum is greater than the parts. No, I care more. I'm losing my voice all of a sudden. Team is, I really care more about my teammates than I do myself. And that's a hard thing for kids to learn. And so we talk about that all the time. We do spotlight on a champion after practice. I'll ask a senior leader. I said, hey, I want you to talk about somebody that doesn't get a backup that had a great practice, or it could be anybody. And so we will do that most after practices. But I think that's the hardest thing is kids are, they come into, I want to be this, I want to be that. You have to go through the process of teaching them how to be selfless and care more about my teammates than I do myself.
Yeah, this is kind of in par with, and I don't know when this hit me. This hit me pretty early on. I think maybe college, right? It's kind of funny because sports, it's all about the collective. And then you look at our society, just being an individualistic, capitalistic society, it's usually about the self. And I've always had this conundrum, like, here we're being raised up and it's about the self. But then, we come into sports and now it's about the collective, and then breaking down those barriers or trying to live within 2 different worlds. I mean, it's tough.
Well, you got a lot of things at play here. It's never been more difficult than it is now, in my opinion, with so much social media and posting myself, doing all these things. You always get to see your best self out there, which is not reality.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, you and I haven't talked about this, but a lot of it is faith. Kids that have a strong faith get it because they are not the center of their universe. They have.
That's a great point, Coach.
And so, usually the private schools have a built-in advantage is that most of those kids understand faith and that there's a higher being at the center of their universe, and that they're not the center of the universe. And kids that don't have that background have a little bit more difficult time, and they can fake it.
Dude, I'm shaking my head because, like, I don't know why. Like, that's just a light bulb moment for me about what you just said. Like, that is so freaking true.
And so it's okay, and we're all on this path. We're into the same, not necessarily heading the same direction, but we're all on this path, and some are farther ahead than others. And so you might have some players that have never heard anything like that before. So, we provide opportunities for our players. We have a chapel, and, kids invite other kids. And I don't want to know who goes and who doesn't go. I don't want people to think, oh, I didn't go to chapel. Coach is not going to play me, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
that's a great point. I mean, that just hit the nail on the head right there for me. Another conundrum that I thought about because it was funny. My kids had soccer class the first day is share, 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 share. Now we're in sports. It's defense. Take away, take away, take away, take away. And I was like, damn, I never thought about it as a kid but like, we're preaching, hey, share your toys. And then now we're starting to get in sports. Now we got to play a little defense. Now we got to steal what the other person values. You know what I mean? So I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, that's good. I've seen teams, they'll get a turnover and they'll bring the ball to the defensive coordinator. Have you seen teams do that?
Mm-mm.
I've seen teams do that. Like they'll get a pick or pick up a fumble and they'll run to the defensive coordinator. Here's the ball. Give me that ball. Get that ball for me.
Yeah, I mean, I got the last time I've probably seen that was in Waterboy.
Oh, is that where they got it from?
Maybe. But going back to the, I was asking you about the non-traditional stats that people chart. We charted it at practice at Boise, but ball opportunities. So punching at the ball, drop pass, picking it up, imitating that it's a fumble. So we charted ball opportunities, and we needed at least 30 ball opportunities throughout the day. And we tried to get three takeaways within a practice, and they did a really good job. Stacy Collins, Western Oregon guy.
Yeah,
Does that name sound familiar? So
yeah,
Stacy, so this was his thing, and he introduced it at Boise State, and it was a huge deal no matter where we at in practice. And it was a nice thing because we can split up at the college level, offense, defense. And even we got an you on scout team, like you announce it at practice. You just say, takeaway number one. And so you can hear the offense on their side of the field. They're saying it, but I thought that was, sorry to go on a tangent there, but I thought that was really interesting.
I think that is really good. I think I heard Brent Venables say that he spoke in Portland last winter. I think he does that too.
Okay.
I think that's amazing because, you do turnover circuit. And then I said, where's the carryover? I don't see anybody punching the ball in the game. I said, you guys work on it, but I don't see anybody doing it in the game. But I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. And the reminder was, if you didn't get 3 takeaways during practice, you just had a gasser, but it wasn't a gasser to, as a punishment gather. It was just a little reminder. And it wasn't like we were dogging them like this was 100-yard or 100% sprint, 75, 80%, just a little reminder. Hey, we didn't reach our goal today, but, we're going to do a little reminder.
I think with that, what you just brought up, and I think which is really good is you are maximizing your time on the field. So if I correct me if I'm wrong. So an incomplete pass is a ball opportunity.
Yeah. I'm kind of meshing what we did at Oregon State with Boise State. But what we did at Oregon State was, loose change. And this was presented by the head coach. If a receiver drops the ball, the defense, it's their opportunity to pick the ball up. And now you're practicing your transition offense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I like it.
Yeah.
I think that's otherwise it's just a ball on the ground and everybody's going back to what they just got done doing. So you in the same amount of time, you've added something to make your practice better. I think it's good.
Yeah. And then it was the same for if the offense ever fumbled it, it was don't jump on the ball. Once the ball touches the ground, it's an automatic country fumble. Defense practices their transition.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really good football. I think that's really smart.
Yeah. You mentioned the senior retreat. You guys went on a hike. Is there anything else that you guys do unique as a team or a program in order to, one, build the culture, install the culture?
We've done this before. We don't do it every year. I've had kids write a letter thanking their mothers. Did this another year where I contact the families during the summer, and I said, I want you to get a white T-shirt and a pen that doesn't bleed, and I want you to write on that shirt that your son will wear underneath his shoulder pads when he plays and practices. And I want you to say, I get emotional just thinking about it. I said, what your son means to you. And so the kids that did that said, I said, I'm never going to take this thing off, So it gives everybody, grandpa, grandma, aunts and uncles, brothers, sisters, everybody's writing on the shirt. And then we present them to the players right before fall camp. We've also done Midnight Madness. We had midnight practice, one time. We change it up. It's like I told you, some guys coach 30 years and do the same thing 30 times in a row. Some guys every year, hey, we're going to try something different. We're going to practice at midnight.
Yeah. I love the shirt idea. I love the letter idea. That's powerful, man. Powerful. And they appreciate it, but 30 years, 40 years from now, I just lost my mom last year.
Sorry.
Like just little things like that. I'm looking for voicemails, and I deleted my dang voicemail, so I barely had any voicemails, but I got videos, you know what I mean? But you're looking for things to attach you back to that person, especially when, you're missing them or you're grieving and so on and so forth. But that's why I love doing this. And one of the big things I want to do about this, I think it was one, selfish, not selfish, but I'm growing, I'm learning, but I'm giving something that, whenever my time is, whenever I pass, my kids can go back and look, and this is who my dad was. And I think it's really powerful too, because I got on with Coach Doug Summer, and I trained with Cam. So Cam Summer, he played at Portland State. We trained together, but he's like, dude, thanks so much for doing it, because I'm gonna show this video to my grandkids, great grandkids of who my dad was. So I think that's why I do really enjoy doing this, because you're gonna have your kids watch this, grandkids watch this, great grandkids watch this, and that's who my papa was. So I do think it's really powerful.
Yeah, I think that's good stuff. I think you're really doing a great thing.
I appreciate that, Coach. Aside from winning, what other metrics do you use to define success as a coach?
That's a great question. We talked about this at the banquet last night, and I told you I'm sitting here over here looking at 4 championship rings just sitting right over there, and I said, that's cool. I don't wear them, but just last week I took my 2 oldest daughters out to dinner on the Vancouver waterfront, and I didn't know
got some good restaurants down there. Got some good restaurants on there.
I know, man. So we're sitting there, and a guy comes up, and I kind of recognize him, and it's a former player, Robbie Fisher. He played for me in '96 and '97. And he's the manager. And for me to catch up, I mean, I'm here to celebrate my daughter's birthday, and I got my daughter's like, great. Here's another former player interrupting our dinner. But to be able to afterwards to stop, and I said, catch me up. Tell me about your life from when I coached you to now, and to be able to reconnect. And then we made a date to have a cup of coffee, and that, to me, the relationships is what it's all about. And so next week I'm taking out to lunch my high school football coach. I sat in his class. Hey, do the math on this. 1975.
Yeah.
I'm a sophomore in high school, and I'm
50 years ago.
That's right. And I'm taking him to lunch, and to this day, we still have that relationship. So I tell kids, I said, the wins and the losses will fade. And, and I don't want to in any way belittle winning state championships, because I guarantee you when I had never coached in one, I really wanted to. I thought I said I might coach 50 years and never coach in a state championship game. But, looking back, I said, that's the richest part of it, is to reconnect with former players and to hear about their lives and what they're doing right now. That, to me, is what's meaningful to me, why I do it.
Yeah. Walk me through pregame ritual. What does that look like? Do you have a pregame ritual? Are you wearing the same pair of underwear every 30 years? Maybe you kept that consistent. I don't know.
I'm not superstitious at all. It's like, hey, whatever. I ask our coaches, I said, hey, what do you guys want to wear tonight? I asked them, what are we wearing? What do you want to wear? Oh, we're wearing green tonight. Well, we got to contrast the players. I don't do, I like to, I knew when I was going to retire, I like to take a picture with the opposing coach with the scoreboard in the background. I got that meant a lot to me. Some old guys I competed with, it was fun. Nothing remarkable about pregame. I do the kicking game rules and all that, add rushman, Linfield stuff.
Yeah.
Kicking game rules, but nothing remarkable, really.
Coach, sorry about that. We got cut off there. We'll just move on. Talk to me a little bit about your self-scout process as a coach. If you're coming back next year, what would that look like?
Yeah, I don't think it's anything too impressive, honestly. What I try to do is get the huddle playbook and get all of our plays. So when we teach those things the next year, I can watch all those plays, the good and the bad. And I do several PowerPoints, slideshows put together, and then I pass those out to visiting coaches or our own players, different phases of our game. And I put together just teaching tapes, basically, is what it is.
Yeah.
But I don't know that you can take what you did the year before, and, your teams always change. So we're always trying to figure out, okay, who are we for the next year?
Sure. Just what does right at the end of the season look like? You guys just had your closing banquet. If you're coming back next year, is it, I'm just taking a big breather from football, come back after Christmas break, exit interviews?
Yes.
Am I thinking big structural coaching philosophy culture first, or am I thinking schematic first? What does that look?
We talk first of all, exit interviews. Ask the player what was good, what would you do differently with our players. I don't believe in doing those things corporately. I like one-on-one. I think it goes a long way. Take a kid out for a burger or something like that goes a long way. You don't have to do it for everybody, but your core players. I talk about to our coaches, schematic changes happen in the off season. If you have any ideas or things you see, now is the time. In the fall is not the time to make those ideas. Now is the time to do that. So we want to know why. And you have to be able to stand up in front of the rest of the staff and tell us why this is better than what we're already doing. And so we've changed a lot of things just for that, because of that.
Yeah. Well, shoot, Coach, really appreciate your time. Really appreciate you hopping on. I know we had a little network issue there, but we got it resolved. Is there any final advice on coaching, teaching, leadership that you'd like to share for the seven listeners that I got with the Coaches Podcast here?
I think what you got to look at,
man.